Tonight, it marks the first of 2 times that Luka will face the Mavericks here. And history tells us that a motivated Luka is a scary thing. You remember this? Back in 2020 in the bubble versus the Clippers, they roughed up Luka a little bit earlier in the series, right? But then, in Game 4, Luka had 43 points, 13 assists, and 17 rebounds en route to this iconic game-winning shot to tie up the series. And then 2 years later, Luka, down 3-2 to the Suns, had the, everyone acting tough when they're up. The Mavs ended up taking the series in 7, and it was the birth of the Luka Booker meme seen around the world. A little sort of smirk that you see right there. And then last season, Luka taking things personally versus Rudy Gobert and the Wolves. Takes a hard foul, then later in the game, hits the game winner, and absolutely lets Rudy hear it. The Mavs took the series in 5. So, McMahon, given that that's what we've seen from Luka here in some revenge games, what do you expect from him tonight?
I think he's going to speak some of that Slovenian that he let Rudy Gobert hear. He's going like,
Jeza. That's the Slovenian for wrath. I looked it up.
Oh, I was going to say, can we say that on television? Okay.
I know Pivo's Slovenian for beer. He might enjoy a couple after this if he has the kind of performance I think he might have tonight. Hell hath no wrath like a motivated Luka Doncic, and he is going to have something to prove to the Mavericks. He tends to find somebody in the stands to bark at, to target. We will see if Nico Harrison, the Mavs GM, decides to sit in the stands today. If he does, I think there will be a one-sided conversation flowing toward him throughout the course of this game.
That could certainly be something that we're all keeping an eye on. And then Luka coming off really his best game in a Lakers uniform here against the Denver Nuggets legs. What are you most looking for from Luka in this one?
Well, look, the first thing you got to know about Luka, he's the only guy in the league that does a heat check the first time up the floor. That's just who Luka is, right? He does that every single night out of layup lines. So I think he's going to do that again. He's going to test the temperature. If that thermometer runs hot and he hits a couple early, yeah, I think you're right. I think Luka then might start to get in the mindset of doing something big, putting up a big number against them. But there's no guarantee that's going to happen. I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit of slack, considering how much time he missed, and he hasn't played that many games. I think the one that's going to matter more, obviously, is when they return in April to Dallas. That's the night. And he wants AD out there. He wants a fully healthy Mavericks team. He wants Nico Harrison sitting there. He wants the owner's box there. He wants all of that there. The fan base probably cheering him on. So tonight, yeah, it's going to be something, but nothing compared to what we're going to see in April.
I think it's going to happen tonight, too. I think it's going to happen right away. I once saw Luka in the World Cup walk from one end of the court to the other to curse out the FIBA Secretary General in Spanish, okay? If Nico was in the bowl, McMahon is right, he's going to find him. And normally I would say in a revenge game like this, I wouldn't expect there to be them bending over backwards to set their player up. But right now, the Lakers are trying to install a system where Luka is at the centerpiece, does have the ball in his hands, and is making their whole offense come off of him. So I think it marries up perfectly for Luka to try to have an enormous game tonight.
Do you guys think tonight's the last night he's really going to be thinking about this trade? Because I think it's still on the top of his mind. It's still something that he thinks about. Maybe he gets motivation from it. I don't know what it is. But I do think as time goes on, he's going to keep getting repetition, get a rhythm in Los Angeles. I think he's doing the best he can right now to embrace being in L.A., playing for the Lakers. It's something that, he has to think about on a daily basis. But he's doing the best he can right now. But I don't know. Does he snap out of it? I don't know.
Listen, let me assure you of this. Luka Doncic can hold a grudge for a long, long time, and he will hold one against the Mavericks organization for the rest of his career.
I think he's going to enjoy facing Kyrie Irving. I think that could be something that is fun that we see there. But yeah, in terms of the organization, I think you have been calling for this game for a while. You thought that they needed this game for Luka to break out. He didn't. All he needed to face was Denver, and now
they played their butt off. We took our foot off the pedal, obviously, defensively especially. Offensively, they were trapping me at half court, and we got a lot of good looks. They just didn't go in. And that's basketball.
Shout out to Finchie, man. He made a great adjustment as far as just going to blitz Shea. Because that's what they did to me all night. So they got a taste of their own medicine.
That was just tremendous top-to-bottom post-game sound. Teams had lost over 1,500 consecutive games when trailing by 24-plus in the fourth quarter before the Timberwolves comeback last night. Tim Legler, he's joining us now. This type of comeback, Tim, is a shock against any team, but especially the Thunder. They've been so dominant in fourth quarters. Legs, what impressed you the most last night?
Well, all right, a couple things. Let's talk about Minnesota's perspective first. I think just the fact they kept playing. I mean, a lot of teams, second night back-to-back, down 20 on the road in the fourth quarter against that team, you're taking everybody out, not just Anthony Edwards. So the fact that they just kept playing, most teams wouldn't. And that trap we talked about was really more like an extended 2-2-1 zone where those top two guys were just absolutely blitzing Shea at half court. They missed a bunch of shots on the wings. You got to make some of those shots and convert them. I thought the defensive adjustment was critical. But now let's look at it from Oklahoma City's standpoint. And where did they go wrong? To me, it was the fouling. They put Minnesota on the line 14 times in the fourth quarter, 8 more times in overtime. That's 22 free throws in 17 minutes. That's really where this went off the rails for Oklahoma City because they allowed Minnesota to score without the clock running and enabled them to set that defense. So, to me, the fouling was very uncharacteristic of their defense. I think that's what Shea was alluding to.
Yeah, whenever you see a collapse, you often see a couple of different things happen. Obviously, the fouling. Terrence Shannon, their rookie, played some of the best minutes of his career.
Dillingham, too.
But I will say, Dillingham for sure. I will say that the takeaway from this game is that zone defense that the Wolves brought out. It was incredibly impressive, and the trapping. And now I would say that teams that are getting ready to play the Thunder going forward are going to install that because that was something that they struggled with. And I would just say for Minnesota, while this is essentially a one-off game, like you're not going to see this one out of every 9,000 times or whatever you said, the Timberwolves are going to get as far as their defense takes them. Last year, they were the top defensive team in the league, and they were essentially the top seed in the West. This year, their defense has slid, and they've slid down the rankings. They've had injuries, of course. But Minnesota's way to get back to the top of the West is playing great defense, and even if it's not in scramble mode like they were last night.
And then after that game, go ahead, Chomps.
Yeah, I think the positive that I've taken from Minnesota the last several weeks, you've been without Julius Randle, been without Dante DiVincenzo. They've relied on 3 rookies, really first-year players to play big roles. That's Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. the last few weeks. And then obviously Jalen Clark, he started last night. He's been big for them as well. And when I look at those 3 guys, they're young, they bring versatility, they allow them to play zone defense. This was a veteran-laden team last year. They played all their vets. And Chris Finch is known as a guy that really relies on his vets. Now he's got an infusion of young guys that he can rely on while they wait on the arrivals of Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, both day-to-day right now.
Day-to-day, okay.
And the Timberwolves are a team, they struggle to protect big leads in the fourth quarter. They're damn good at rallying, though. This is some new guys in the mix there. This Timberwolves team, though, pulled off one of the most amazing comebacks in NBA playoff history last year, coming back from 20-some-odd down in a Game 7 in Denver to eliminate the defending champs. And I ran into the Chris Finch, the Timberwolves coach.
The Chris Finch.
Yeah, I ran into him this morning. They're in L.A. now. You know, he's floating a little bit. He said, I probably waited a little bit too long to throw the trap at SGA. I said, no, I think you got to it just in time.
Right.
And then Anthony Edwards got back in the game after nursing that calf just in time. And this is one of the most amazing blocks that probably you will see all season long. The second most impressive, most spectacular defensive play of Anthony Edwards' career, behind only that chase down block where the guy sealed the win in Indiana last year, hit his head on the rim with this chase down block.
Yeah, this one. Any chance to show this video?
The explosion off the ground is still unbelievable a year later.
And as Finchy told me, Ant has a way of just taking it to another gear.
Yep.
In moments like this, you saw that last night, and certainly that is Exhibit A right there.
And they're going to need it because Ant said this has been a little bit of a roller coaster season for them. They want to get back to the Western Conference Final, and so far this hasn't been the clear Western Conference Final looking team, but perhaps last night can serve as a little bit of a spark plug for them. That was the game of the night. But this evening, we have a monster